I'd like to show that with a quick sort of sorting out activity. So what we've got here is the kingdom is Animalia, so it gets rid of the bacteria and the fungus there. The next thing is chordata, so the earthworm and the ant are going to go. So they're gone. Then you've got mammalian, so the bird, the fish go. We are now left with all the mammals. Then we go into order carnivore. The monkey there goes, and also the dolphin does, surprisingly, because it is not a true carnivore. It does not eat red meat, it eats fish. So it then leaves as well. So we're now left with similar looking organisms, cats and dogs, basically. Now we're going to try and limit it down even more. So we get into the family, and the family is going to be of canine descent. So we're going to lose all the cats, the tiger and the cat go. There they go. And now we're left with all dog-like organisms. We've got the painted wolf, or the African hunting dog as it used to be called. We've got coyote, Alsatian, grey wolf, fox, and the red wolf. So we've been left with all dogs, effectively, or dog-like descendants. And we're now going to focus in a little bit more. Genus is Canis. So that means the fox and the hunting dog are going to go, because the fox is vulpine and the hunting dog is lycon, or lycan, not quite sure which one, can't remember. And we then move into the final thing, the species, which is now going to get rid of pretty much everything apart from the ones we're going to focus on. So in this case, it's lupus, so it's the wolf. So the coyote is not a wolf, and the red wolf is a separate one. We're looking at the grey or timber wolf, so they go. So we're left with Canis lupus, timber wolf, grey wolf, just the wolf. When everyone says wolf, generic wolf, that's what they think of, a timber wolf. However, we've still got the Alsatian there, which you may be thinking, why? But if you remember, I just said there are subspecies. The Alsatian is a wolf subspecies. It's a working dog, very smart, and is of wolf descent. They can actually interbreed and still produce fertile young. So it is a subspecies, Canis lupus familiaris, basically familiar or friendly wolf. Hopefully that sort of classifies it down and makes it a little bit more sort of visual for you. And it'd be well worth you looking into maybe your favorite animal to see what classification it has. Humans have got an amazing phylogenetic tree. They started about 8 million years ago with the generic forest ape, and some form of change in the environment meant that these forest apes, which were dwelling in the higher mountainous forests of mountain ranges, some of them stayed in the forests or the mountains and became the eastern and western gorillas. So this is the gorilla branch here, which went into staying basically higher up. So there's sort of gorillas in the mist, that sort of thing, often on mountainous forest. Whereas the chimpanzee branch moved down into the lowland forests, and they slowly adapted to the environment, became the eastern, western, and the bonobo. So they just became separate species, but they've got similar evolutionary roots. So the gorilla is the very distant cousin of the chimpanzee. Close cousins are the eastern and western chimpanzee there, because they're close on the branch. But if you go back, you go all the way back to the start and then back out again to find these. So these two are close cousins, but they're distant cousins to the chimpanzees. But what's really interesting is about 6 million years ago, one enterprising group of precursor humans, or advanced chimpanzees if you prefer, started to think, well, out of those plains, there is a lot of resources that we can use, but none of us chimpanzee-like things are out there. So they started to move out. This is all theoretical, but it's got strong evolutionary evidence. So they started to move out into the plains and the grassland there. Now you've got to think this grass is very high. It can be shoulder high or above easily. So it was very difficult to look for predators approaching and also see food sources and stuff. So the chimpanzees that could stand upright for longer had an environmental advantage over the ones that couldn't. So the ones that were walking on their knuckles and couldn't stand up very long were killed by lions or whatever, whereas the ones that could stand up could see things coming and could find food easier and could look out for danger. So being able to walk upright was very advantageous. So they slowly started to adapt to the plain-like environment of walking upright being an advantage. It also freed up the two most valuable tools we've ever freed in our history, which is our hands. Because when we were walking on them before, like chimpanzees do, every now and then being able to stand up for a little bit, we now freed them up fully to be able to hold a stone and throw it at a bird, say, or fashion a stick into a spike and throw that at a bird, or attach a piece of rock to the end of another stick and launch it in the form of an arrow. And slowly we started to develop tool use and became more and more proficient, and our hands became our primary tool to do everything. So nature tried many different sub routes. Just went, let's just try this randomly and see what happens. And they weren't advantageous, so they died out. Events killed them. But one branch, about 2 million years ago, Homo erectus, the Homo erectus branch continued, but a sub-branch, the Homo sapiens, of which we are that, branched away and started to develop larger brains, this sort of thing. Of that, about 1 million years ago, just under, that subdivided, and there's a lot of conjecture as to why. It's believed that Neanderthals stayed in the caves after the Ice Age, but we left the caves. So we went out more adventurous. So it was believed that we also formed a symbiotic relationship, well, pseudo-symbiotic relationship with wolves, whereas Neanderthals stayed in the cave. We were a lot more progressive going out hunting. So the Neanderthals unfortunately died out. There's a lot of conjecture that maybe we killed them, but we were the better adapted and survived to the present day. So it's absolutely fascinating how human development came about. And that links nicely to the phylogenetic trees. So taxonomy is shifting from that fixed sort of subcategories into more phylogenies. So phylogenetic trees with evolutionary roots. The unfortunate thing, it's very complex. There's an awful lot of different branches that you can do, and they're represented by phylogenetic trees. You've got to sort of work out every single option, and that's the problem. There's so many different combinations that it can become very, very complex very, very quickly. With 50 combinations, I think there's more combinations than there is atoms in the universe. So it's crazy how many different combinations you can get. So it is a little bit of guesswork and using very powerful computers to work this out. The key to it, though, is oldest species are at the base, newer at the top. It could be the furthest to the left, the furthest to the right. Just look at the timeline and that'll tell you. So that's where the clue is. The further back in time, they are the older species, obviously. And the closer the branches are, the closer the species are related. So as we saw there with the eastern and the western chimpanzee, they're closely related, but they're distantly related to the gorilla. And the final thing is the future of taxonomy is going to move forward with these phylogenetic trees. They are the new thing, and they are really, really good at working out how our evolutionary roots and other animals' evolutionary roots come about. So whilst classification is basically just looking at stuff, we're finding more and more, especially with DNA technology, we can now see similarities between species that we could never possibly perceive. If you just went on the physical appearance, it's kind of, well, they look the same, they must be the same, but they could be vastly different. Plants especially, some plants have got massive, like meter across flowers, and their closest relatives are some with tiny, tiny little flowers. So it's really strange how we can't just go on physical. So we start to look at genetics, DNA evidence, this sort of thing. And it's brought up some very, very interesting ideas. You can look this up in your own time, but there's this new phylogenetic idea that we are the third chimpanzee. We didn't branch off where we thought, we branched off closer to the chimpanzees, but it's a fringe idea, it's quite radical. There's also an idea that maybe we evolved or had sort of co-evolution with dolphins, but again, you can look them up yourself. Anyway, hope that helps. Thanks a lot. Bye.